Bob said that he had been out working in his yard when he saw some clouds coming in, and he was getting ready for his son's graduation the next week. They lived in Old Victorian, as did many people in Greensburg. I saw the clouds coming in. My wife and I came in the house, had a nice supper, and were just sitting in the chairs visiting, and went on about our evening. We were watching a movie, so we didn't have the TV news on. After the movie was over, we switched over to the networks, and they had across the bottom of the screen storm warning. So I got on the internet and I looked at the city service radar and watched that for a while. Then when the sirens went off about 9:15 or so, I knew it was time to go to the basement. I'm usually the one who likes to go out in severe weather and stand in the alley and see what's going on. But this time I knew. I just knew. It really surprised Ann that I had the gut feeling to get to the basement. On the ledge in the family room, in the built-in china hutch, I had a little container, and I put my billfold there, and my medicine, and several things, and I had one of those plastic dilling sacks, and I raked it all in there, and we went down to the basement, and the sirens were going off. The lights went off. I said, oops, must have closed the highway south of town because it took out the power lines. And I said, shoot, I forgot the flashlight. I'll go up and get it. She said, no, I know right where it's at. I'll go get it. So she ran up, ran back down, and then it hit. Oh my gosh. We remember debris hitting the house and windows popping and our ears popping, and there was a tremendous amount of noise. And then there was a lull. The National Weather Service says as much as 3 minutes, and then the backside hit us. We were right in the core of the tornado. So we were huddled down in there. My daughter, our oldest daughter, had, when she was back visiting us one time, bought some of those area rugs, and we were storing them. We pulled them up over our heads. I said, we better get these up over our heads in case there's some debris flying. We don't want to get hit. So we didn't have no debris hit us, no bruises, nothing. The noise had died down. It was raining. I could feel wet down below us. I said, Ann, we ain't got no roof left. And of course we hadn't looked out because there was some hail in the air. It took away the floor, everything. The only thing when it got done was this concrete step you see here in the photo. This was all stacked up right over there. 3 stories of it, debris that had been the house. I stood up in the basement and I looked out and I just went, holy cow. Well, I don't think those were my exact words. Yeah. So all the little towns around, along with emergencies. And so this man, Kamal, is a manager in a Midwestern retirement community. And he's from Sri Lanka, and he's a citizen, and he has a really great immigrant story, I think. So I'd like to read you just a little bit about it. When I was young, my topmost dream was to come to the United States. I had a pen that said it was made in the USA. I didn't use it. I just put it in my top pocket for show. My family dynamic was that I had a brother who was a huge cricket star in Sri Lanka. I was in the shadow of my brother. My father was a big-ass alcoholic. He was not nice to Mom. Every night she went to bed in tears. I hated this. At sundown, everyone would get depressed because they knew my dad was going to come home drunk. It made me sad. I wanted to do something. I couldn't overpower him, so I became the family clown. I went to see movies. I started coming home and acting out funny characters in Bollywood movies. The first English-speaking movie I went to, I fell in love with the U.S. I was in 3rd grade, 9 years old. It was a Western a movie with Clint Eastwood as the star. He pulled into town, pulled his gun, got these women. I thought, wow. I kept working toward my goal, coming to America. In the paper, they said they were seeking foreign exchange students who could go to Canada, New Zealand, Australia, or the United States. It was really a tough process. 100,000 kids came down to 14. I was driven, focused. When I got the last interview, you had to take a family member, but I had to take the train, and my mom didn't know how to get there. I had to take my dad, but it was not good because he was an alcoholic. Walking to the train, every 2 minutes or every block, he would say, son, wait here. By the 5th block, I figured it out. He was so drunk, he could hardly stand up. Everyone else was there with their proud parent. I was practically holding Dad up. The panel sat him down. Dad's first question was, tell me how much this is going to cost me. I wanted to deck him with my elbow. That was my closest weapon. I thought they would kick the drunk guy and the kid out of the interview. After my years as an exchange student, when I got home, I cried to my mother. I gave up on the whole thing. Then the letter came and said I was to go to the United States. Then I felt guilty about leaving the family. But when I came here, I loved everything about this country. I loved the airport, I loved the cars, I loved the houses, I loved the food, I loved the people. After my years as an exchange student, I went back to my country to study hotel and restaurant management with the thought I could get a job in that field in the U.S. I went to school and worked in the field as a busboy at the Hotel Oberoi, Sri Lanka, one of the 5-star hotels, #1 in the country. I went to school in the mornings and worked at night, determined to save enough money to come back here. I did that for 4 years. I was a waiter, restaurant captain, banquet captain. I got a 4-year degree and had 4 years experience in the hotel and restaurant industry. But that was the lowest point. I went to school from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., back to work until 2 a.m. At 8 a.m. I put on the same pair of socks. It was pretty damn close to Slumdog Millionaire, what I looked like. The same type of boarding room with 4 people and a tiny cabinet to put your stuff in. I wake up and my socks have holes in them. Someone is coming and eating my socks. I'm going to lock my socks up, I thought. But the creature did the same thing to me. The creature was so addicted to my socks, guess what he ate next? My toes. A huge rat. I finally started wearing socks and shoes to bed. I probably have 50 pairs of socks now that I only have to wash once a month. And so and I was in my 50s. She saw the doctor in 2004, just months before her death. She took her own life. You couldn't stop a freight train. She was going to write her own exit. It was not an easy childhood. I'm the middle of 3 sons, 1 brother was 3 years older. He was an example of what I didn't want to be like in any way. My other brother was 7 years younger, a loner, and one never depended on him for anything. My father was German, from Stuttgart. My mother was Scotch-Irish and constantly fought with him and pulled us aside to tell us how much she hated him. She tried to divide us from our father. There was a lot of screaming and yelling. She told us later, I stayed in the marriage for you 3 boys. Sure, I thought, screwed up 3 boys in the process. I never had a childhood, really. My grandmother was and is my guardian angel. She was the ultimate definition of unconditional love. Grammy showed me how to sew. She explained how if you were born with a talent, you must use it. She took apart shirts of mine for the patterns. For my 13th birthday, I wanted a buttonholer. My father said no. My grandmother got me 2. My grandmother made my life's path very clear to me. But our family was like gypsies. We moved 13 times while I was growing up here in Colorado Springs. One time I said to my mother, why do we take these things out of the boxes? They're all labeled for next time. I moved out of the house at 16. I had my own apartment on Nevada Avenue where I pressed my own graduation road. Sometimes I would get lonely, but I would think of things about living with my family and I would snap out of it. When I had been just a skinny 11-year-old kid, I announced to the family and relatives while watching Gunsmoke, I'm going to work in the studios, motion pictures, and television. My father laughed the loudest. Years later, when I walked down the set of the main street in Dodge, it was a dirt road with building fronts and nothing behind them, I thought about his laughter and I said, well, I made it to Dodge. And indeed he did. He became the head of the wardrobe department at NBC. It was in a time during All in the Family, Laugh-In, Sanford and Sons, and so he really got to know a lot of the, and he has many tales here of the actors and people he came into contact with. I dropped a handler, but it entailed the same skills. Eventually I became a shop steward and head of the wardrobe department. I loved it. I was home. I could deal with people. You have direct interaction with actors and actresses when you're designing and putting their clothes on them. They were prima donnas, of course. There was an actress one day who didn't want to put on a dress for her scene. She told me, I don't wear that color. I told her, your character doesn't shop at Neiman Marcus. You are playing the part of a Kansas farm woman who wears house dresses from JCPenney and the Sears catalog. You're playing someone else. Can you act or can't you act? As you can see, Wayne is quite a character. And, he retired. He did have relationships in his life. He's not in one currently. And this is what he's thinking now. And he moved back to Colorado Springs. Right now, I'm more or less enjoying being alone. I'm much more relaxed. I don't have to answer to anybody. I can have whatever I want to do what I want, get into my jammies, say no to going out for the evening. I'm ready to leave Colorado Springs. I'm looking for a lighthouse keeper's house on the East Coast to buy. That's where I think I'd like to write a book and spend the rest of my life. There are complications in dealing with the government, though, to buy a lighthouse and a tender's cottage. But I'm definitely optimistic. For me, home involves another human being. A good, healthy, loving, sharing relationship with another person is what makes a home for me. When people go home, they should feel they're in an environment where they're supported and listened to. Two people make something between them. Hey, a union doesn't work alone. So someone asked me recently what I learned in putting together Finding Home, and I think one of the things is something that I already suspected, is that there is increasing connection between and among people, and that connection is very powerful, and that it comes to the fore particularly in times of stress or disaster. And so I feel privileged to have connected with these people on these pages. I mean, you can't detail people's struggles and hear their elation at overcoming them without developing a very deep sense of intimacy with them. So I really love the people in this book, and I hope that you get to meet them and enjoy them too. Thank you very much.